Hello, this is Rachel from Hello Boer Crochet. Today I'm going to show you how to create this Chunky Alpine Stitch bralette. Right. So I'm going to show you how I create my size. So you can find my measurements and details in the description box below, so that if you are close to my size, you can just follow along exactly. And then I do give some tips and tricks as I go about why I make the number of stitches I do in different areas, so that hopefully you can customize this bralette to your own size. Alright, so if you are interested in a written pattern where I have a lot of different sizes figured out for you, please leave me a comment in the just below or on my Instagram, either is fine, and let me know. And that if I have enough people that are interested, I will work on that. Okay. To create this bralette, I used a size 5 or bulky weight yarn. And the specific yarn I used is from Lion brand. So I used this Hue plus Me or Hue and Me yarn. All right. And here are the details on this yarn. All right. So I used one skein, so 137 yards or 125 grams. And this is an 80% acrylic or a 20% wool yarn. I'm not sure if you guys can read that. Maybe right there. All right, so if you're going to substitute a different yarn, I suggest finding one that is acrylic or polyester or something that has that kind of stretch to it. All right. So you're also going to want a 5.5 millimeter hook. All right, so here it is. Hopefully you can see those numbers. 5.5 millimeters. Right. Then you want some buttons for the back straps. I used these wooden buttons. They are 12 millimeters or a half an inch in size. And you need two, one for each strap. Then thread to sew the buttons on, a needle to sew the buttons on, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, a bunch of stitch markers, and some scissors. Right, so once you have all those materials together, we are ready to start. Right, so to begin, take your yarn, make your slip knot, insert your hook, and we are ready to create our ribbing. So we will chain 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Skip that very first chain, and then into that second chain, place a single crochet. And now place a single crochet into each remaining chain all the way down. So you should end with 7 single crochet. All right. Go ahead and chain 1 and turn. Now this next row will be the row that we will repeat for the entire length of our ribbing. All right. So into all of the single crochet stitches, we will be finding that back loop. Right? So here's the front loop, here's the back loop. So you want to place your hook into the back loop only and create your single crochet. Right? So into that back loop and single. You will complete that all the way down. And into the final one. Okay, so you should have 7 single crochet into the back loop only. And that is the row we're going to repeat. So chain up 1, turn your work, right? Find that back loop, right here and create that single crochet. Back loop, single, all the way down your work. So that is the end of the third row. Okay. So for my size, I need a total of 50 of these rows. So I will just keep going until I have created 50. Alright, I have completed my 50 ribbing rows. So if you want to count by using these top ridges, then I have 25. So now we're ready to go ahead and start crocheting up to create the body. So our next row is going to be to turn and create single crochet all the way along this top edge right here. So to make my edging, I'm going to chain one and turn my work to face this direction. Now for this edging row, I like to place one single crochet into each edge of the single crochet rows. So since I had a total of 50 rows, that's going to be 50 single crochet. Okay. For this pattern, we actually are going to need an odd number of single crochet. And when I reach the very end, I'm going to squeeze in that final one so that I'm going to actually have 51 total single crochet. Alright, so I will show you my first few so you see where I like to place mine. So my very first one I like to place right here. Right, keeping that edge nice and tight. Then I like to find this like sort of the V opening area of the stitch and then go straight into that. And then this giant obvious nice hole for the next one. Then again, there's that middle V, and then the obvious hole, the middle V, and then that obvious hole. Okay, so go ahead and keep going just like that. Right. And then I will show you my end so you see how I can squeeze in that last single crochet that I need. I've created 49 single crochet along my top edge. Alright, so you can see that my last one was into that sort of obvious hole spot. So my 50th is going to go in this final ridge area. Right? So just like that. So you can see that we actually have a pretty clear area still to make that last single crochet in to create our odd number, right, into this initial chain that we created. So I like to insert my hook right there. Okay. Pull up my loop and make that final single crochet. Right. For our next row, we are going to be making a few increases. So the first step, take a stitch marker, find the very middle stitch of your odd numbered single crochet and place your stitch marker into that stitch. So I have 51 total single crochet, so mine will be the 26th stitch. Okay, there is my stitch marker in that middle stitch. In this middle portion that will become the front of the bralette, that is where I like to place some extra increases in the next row. So I prefer to make a total of 6 extra stitches. So I'm going to need 3 on this side and 3 on this side. Okay. So I have 6 more stitch markers that I will use to mark those stitches that I'm going to be placing my increases into. Alright, I've placed my stitch markers into those stitches. Okay, so this middle one, just don't forget that one is not an increase marker, it is for the middle, just to mark the middle of the overall piece. Okay, so if you need to put a special color in or some other kind of marker to make sure you don't get confused, please do that. So here are my 3 and my 3. Right. I placed mine, the first one is 2 stitches between the marker and the middle. Then I went ahead and did 3 stitches and then a marker and then 3 stitches and a marker. And I mirrored it exactly on this side. So 2 stitches and a marker, 3, marker, 3, marker. Okay, so the point of this is to just increase the size on the front slightly, since the ribbing portion needs to be tighter on our body than this next area. This helps to just create a slightly better fit on your body. All right, so as long as they're pretty evenly distributed and not too much around the ends, you are fine. Right, so to create this next row, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And we will be placing a single crochet into every stitch until we reach a stitch marker. Right, so just single, and then another single, and another single, and just keep doing that until you reach that first stitch marker. I've reached my first stitch marker. So go ahead and remove that stitch marker. And then into that stitch, we are going to place 2 single crochet. So there's the first one, and there is the second one. And that is how we make the increase. So now into the next ones, your regular single crochet. Here's my next stitch marker. So I'll remove that and then place 2 single crochet into that stitch. Right. Then regular, right, stitch marker. Remove that and place my 2 single crochet. And there are my 3 increases on that side. So remember that this is my marker, that was my middle marker. Okay, so when I reach this marker, I'm not going to be placing an increase. I'm going to just put 1 single crochet, and then I'm going to go ahead and place this marker back into the top of that stitch. All right. So there's my single crochet into the space that had my middle marker, and here is that middle marker moved up into the top of that stitch. Alright, so now I have the increases on the other side remaining. Right, so here is an increase marker. So removing that and placing 2 single crochet into that marked space. Right? And then just keep going with your regular single crochets and then 2 singles where any of those increase markers are until you have reached the end of the row. Here is my completed row. Now this next row is going to go ahead and place increases into the areas right where your breasts begin to sort of become really full. So this placement can be a little bit of a personal preference. So I have my 4 stitch markers. For my size, I'm going to place a total of 4 increases on each side. So I'll have 8 total stitch increases. And that's about 1 inch or 1.5 inches of added width into those areas. So if you need more than that to be added, you just add in multiples of 2. Okay, so you can do 6 increases stitches or 8, or if you want less than that, you can do 2 or none at all, right? So it depends on your size. So I have my stitch markers for my stitch increases. My preference for placement, I like to, here's my middle stitch, I like to count 7 stitches out here and then place it into the 8th, and that will be the closest increase to my middle. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then into the 8th, I'll place my marker. And then since I am making a total of 4 increases, this is my first increase, this will be my second, this will be my third, and then this one will be my 4th. So I'm going to go ahead and also mark that spot so that I know this is the start and end since we're moving from this direction, right? And then I just mirror that exactly on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then into that 8th, my stitch marker. And then that's my first increase, so second, third, and then my 4th increase. Okay. All right, so now I am ready for my next row. And then I thought it might also be useful to tell you the distance between the middle point of my increases to the other middle point. Okay, so don't have like an obvious middle, I have 4 stitches, so I just placed the ruler right in between the second and the third stitch here. Okay, so between these it's about 6.5 inches for me. Centimeters would be just about 17 centimeters. All right, so this next row is going to be all half double crochet stitches. Okay, so to begin, chain 1 and turn. And then into that very first stitch, place your first half double crochet. Okay. Now place 1 half double crochet into each stitch all the way across, right? So if you need a quick refresh, you make your half double crochet by yarning over 1 time, inserting your hook into the stitch, and pulling up a loop. Then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. That is your half double crochet. So keep making those half double crochet until you reach that first stitch marker. Alright, I have reached my first stitch marker. So remember that this is going to be an increase, and then both of the stitches between the stitch markers will also be increases, and then our final increase will go here. Okay, so if you're making it exactly like me, that's how we're going to do it. If you're making 6 or 8 or 10 or however many increases, it's the same idea as this, you're just doing more of them. Okay, so go ahead and remove that first stitch marker. And then into this first stitch, place a half double crochet, and then again into that exact same stitch, place a half double crochet. Okay, so there is our increase. So again, into the next one, place your first half double crochet, and then into that exact same stitch, place your second half double crochet. Right, so 2 into the next one again. There's 1, and there's 2. Okay, so I've reached my last stitch marker, so I'll remove that. And then this stitch will get our final increase for this little section. Okay, so 1 and 2. So I have 4 total additional stitches right in this area. Now I'm going to continue along, making my half double crochet, just 1, right, into each stitch. So we are not doing the increases anymore. When you reach that middle stitch marker, go ahead and remove it, place 1 half double crochet, and then put that stitch marker back in, right? This is just to mark the middle. And then I'll go ahead and do the increase section again on this side. I've reached that first stitch marker for my second increase section. Right, so here's that middle. You can see I just placed my 1 half double crochet and then placed this stitch marker back into the top. Okay, so go ahead and remove your first stitch marker and then begin this increase portion. So into this stitch, I have completed that 2 row of my straight single crochet all the way across. So we are ready to begin the next row. Now into the next one again. Place 2, and then 2 into the next one, okay, and then we've reached the final stitch marker, so remove that one, and then place your last increase right into that stitch. So we have 4 additional stitches on this side. Now you can complete your row simply by placing 1 half double crochet into every single stitch all the way down to the end. So here is the end of my row, okay? And then your increase portion is right around here and here. Okay, so those will end up sort of pulling out in your final to make the curve for your cup area. Okay. Now your next row is a very easy row. It is just single crochet all the way back across. Okay, so go ahead and chain 1, turn your work, and place 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way down. I have completed that row of my straight single crochet all the way across. So we are ready to begin the next row. To start our next row, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. Into this very first stitch, we will place a half double crochet. Now this next stitch is a post stitch. So that means that instead of going into these top stitches here, like we have been, we're actually going to find the post of the half double crochet we made 2 rows ago. Okay, so we don't want the post of the single, which is right here. We want the post of these half double crochet from all the way down here. Okay, so we don't want this first one, right? We just placed our half double crochet above that stitch. So that one is taken care of. We want it around the post of the next stitch. Okay. So to create this post stitch, we will yarn over, find that post, insert your hook like this, and then around to the other side. All right. Yarn over and draw up a loop. Okay, then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. That is your post stitch. Our next stitch will be a regular half double crochet. Okay, so into the next stitch, just like normal, place that half double. And now if you look on the other side of your work, you should have 1 stitch that looks like this, right? Which we did not work into, because that is the stitch where we made the post stitch instead, right? So these top 2 loops weren't worked into. So when you turn your work, when we're making this, it should always have this every other effect, right? So a common mistake is to actually place the next stitch into the stitch right here, where we made that post stitch, and then you end up with way too many stitches, okay? So it's every other, right? Okay, so to make the next post stitch, go ahead and yarn over, right? And then we don't want this post here, which is right next to the one we just did that post around. We want the next one, right? So we're always skipping one of those posts. Okay, so insert your hook around the post, just like that. And then pull up your loop. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. And then yarn over and pull through 2. Right. So that is a front post double crochet. And this is how we'll be creating the alpine stitch texture. Right? We will place a half double crochet and then a front post double crochet, and then a half, and then a front post double, and a half and a front post double, all the way down our work. So one more time, find the next stitch and place your regular half double crochet. Okay, now yarn over, find the post of the next stitch we want, insert your hook around, pull up that loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay, so keep doing that all the way across. When you get to the increase section, the stitches will be a little bit tight, so it's a little bit trickier to get your hook around only one of them, but it's totally doable. Okay, so you just might need a little bit of extra patience. So make those all the way down, and I'll meet you with a couple stitches remaining. I've made it to that little increase section that we made, so I thought I would go ahead and show you. Okay, so here is my post stitch. So my next stitch is a half double, right here. Okay. Now my next is a post stitch, so I'm going to skip this one and create it around my next one. Okay, and then again, here is my next stitch for the half double. Okay, so this area can be a little tricky, and you might want to turn your work and double check that you have that one skipped stitch between every single one that you did not skip, right? To be sure that you went into the right spot. I have 2 stitches remaining in my row, and I just completed a regular half double crochet. So for my next stitch, I will create a post stitch. There's my front post double. And then for my last stitch, I will place my final half double crochet. Right. At this point, this is what the front of your work should look like. Okay, so if you flatten this part, you can probably see the stitches a little better. So this is all of the height I'm going to create for this one. And the next step is going to be to make each cup separately. All right. But before we cut and tie our yarn, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and go down the side to create our holes on this end. So chain 1, and then turn your work this way, so that you can create a single crochet edging row down the side. Okay. So I like to place mine like this. First one here, the next one here, right? And then a third one right there, and a fourth one right there. Okay. And then it becomes pretty obvious where to go. So finishing off my single crochet, so these are the chains that we made to begin, so it can be a little harder to get your hook in those, so just have a little patience and push and wiggle, and you can get it. And then I have one more right there. So there is my row of single crochet going down. I'm going to chain one and turn my work and create one more row of single crochet just going right back up. So that's my first stitch right there. Alright, there's my second row of single crochet. So I'm going to create the holes now, and this will be for our little tie in the back. So into the very first stitch, place a single crochet, and then chain one. Skip the next stitch, and into the next stitch, place a single crochet. And then one more single crochet, chain one, skip, and then two single crochet, chain one, skip, two single crochet, and my two stitches remaining, chain one, skip, and then my final single crochet. Then for my very final row, I'm going to chain one and turn, and then place one single crochet into each stitch and one into each of these chain one spaces. Right, like that. So here are my regular single crochets, and then that chain one space. And my very final. Okay. And we are finished creating the holes along the edge. So this is what it looks like from the front with our added holes along the side. So at this point you can go ahead and cut and tie your yarn. Alright, I have cut and tied my yarn. To do that I normally just chain one, cut the end, and then pull through and pull tight. Okay. So the next step is going to be to create our first cup area. Alright, so I have placed my stitch marker into the stitch I want to start into. Each cup is going to have a stitch placed into this middle stitch. Okay. So this is a good time to make adjustments for yourself based off your own size. I have placed my marker into a stitch that gives me 7 total inches of width here, which is 18 centimeters. Right. So you need there to be an odd number of stitches total, and that counts the stitches that both stitch markers are placed into. Right. So they should be at the top of one of your regular half double crochet stitches, not at the top of a post stitch. That's important for the decreasing. So mine, let's see, here's my middle stitch. So that counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Okay, so I have 21 total stitches for the width of my cup area. So your first step is going to be to reattach your yarn. So to do this, I make a slip knot, insert my hook, right? Take my project, and then we are going to insert the yarn or reattach it right into that stitch marker we placed. Okay, so here's the middle stitch marker, and this was the other stitch marker. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and actually remove this marker, and then right into that stitch, insert my hook, and then create a slip stitch. Right, and that is how I like to attach my yarn. So now we can chain one and place our single crochet into this very first stitch. All right, so that's the same stitch that we made our slip stitch into. And then place one single crochet all the way across your row until you reach the middle stitch marker. Okay, so I will place my stitches until I have that one stitch remaining. Okay, I have that single stitch remaining where my stitch marker is. I'm not going to remove the stitch marker, I'm just going to place my last single crochet right into that stitch. All right, I like to leave this one marked for the other side. Go ahead and chain one and turn your work. So let me show you this full out. Okay, so this is what the front looks like. And here is that single crochet row that we made. So this next set of rows are all going to begin and end with a decrease, right? And that is to create that cup appearance. So we need it to be like a triangle. So we need our edges to slope inward, right? Okay, so decreasing and decreasing right at the ends. I will show you how to do that. Okay, so this was our last stitch right here. Normally we would have created our half double crochet right into this stitch, but for our decrease we are going to skip this stitch completely and place our first half double crochet into the second stitch. All right, so that is our first decrease. Now this is the second normal row of our alpine stitch. Okay, so our post stitches for this one are going to go on the double or the half double crochet between the posts. All right, so you find that half double. Okay, it's right here. Go around the post stitch and create your double crochet. And then place your half double crochet into the next stitch, right? So find again the post of the half double that we want, right? So here's our single crochet row, and then here was that row below. This is the one that we want. Okay, so go right around that post and create your double. Right? And then we just continue this down the row. Right? Until we have, let's go ahead and meet with 3 stitches remaining. Okay, so be careful when you count these end stitches. This little guy right at the very end was our slip stitch to secure the yarn. It's not a stitch, okay? So this one, and this one are our last 3. I'll meet you when I have those remaining. I have my 3 remaining stitches, so I just completed a half double crochet. So around the next stitch, I'm going to create that post stitch. Now I have 2 stitches left. And this is where we will be making our decrease for this side. All right. So prepare for that half double crochet, and then instead of placing it into this next stitch, skip that stitch and place it instead into the very final stitch. All right. Okay, and that is how we will make the decrease on this side of our work. All right, so we are going to be creating a few of these rows. So the next row, you just chain one, turn, and then place one single crochet into each stitch across. And then I will show you again how to do that starting decrease and then the ending decrease. I've finished my single crochet row. Okay, so we should have 2 less stitches in this row than we did in the single crochet row we made before, right? I had 21 stitches in that row, so in this row I have 19. All right, so every single row that has that decrease at the start and the end will reduce the overall stitch count by 2. So let's begin the next row by chaining one and turning. And then we do the exact same decrease method. Yarn over, then skip that first stitch into the second stitch, place your half double crochet. Okay, now you just keep doing that alpine stitch as normal with your post stitch next, like that, all the way until you have those last 2 stitches remaining. I have completed until I had those last 2 stitches remaining. So I finished with a front post double crochet. So to complete this final stitch, we are going to do that same decrease by skipping the next stitch and placing our half double crochet into the very final stitch. All right. So we are going to be creating those rows for a little while, where you just create the single crochet row across and then turn and do that front decrease and that last decrease with that alpine stitch row. Alright, I have made an additional 6 rows, just doing that single crochet and then the alpine stitch with the front and final decreases. Okay, so I'm going to show 2 different heights for this cup portion. Right, so this is going to be the taller option for this size, and then after this I will show a shorter option. Right, so you can pick the coverage that you like for yourself. Right, so if you want to make this taller one, go ahead and do those 6 additional rows. And I am now going to go ahead and make my 7th row by just doing my single crochet row back across. All right, and then I will show you how to finish off the top of this cup. Right, I finished that single crochet row, so I have 11 total stitches, and I'm going to go ahead and take a stitch marker and mark my middle stitch, which will be the 6th stitch. All right, so there's my stitch marker, and now we are ready for our next row. To begin the next row, chain 1 and turn your work. We will begin with the same decrease that we have been doing. So skip that first stitch and into the second stitch, place your half double crochet. Now we will create our post stitch. And then one more half double crochet. Now we have 1 stitch remaining before the stitch marker. So this set of stitches here, this one before it, this one after it, and the one the stitch marker is in, are all going to be a decrease portion. Okay, so go ahead and remove your stitch marker. Yarn over, and then begin the post stitch. So draw up your loop, yarn over and draw through 2. Now go ahead and yarn over, skip the next stitch completely, and find the next post for our next post stitch. Yarn over and pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through 2. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. So that is our middle decrease for this row. So we are going to be, we have 1 stitch now where we used to have 3 stitches right in the middle. All right, so now we will place our half double crochet into the next stitch, then our post, we have our 2 stitches remaining, so we will make that ending decrease again, skipping the first one, and into the second one placing our half double crochet. Okay. So now we will chain 1 and turn, and place 1 single crochet into each stitch across. And then we have 1 more of those special decrease rows. So I completed my single crochet, which I have 7 of those. So chain 1 and turn. All right. So for this final row, we will skip that first stitch again and place our half double crochet into the second stitch. And then again into these next 3 stitches, we will be doing that other decrease. So yarn over, find the post stitch, yarn over and pull up your loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, skip this area right here, find the next post stitch, and yarn over and pull up that loop, yarn over and pull through 2. You have your 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so you can see that these decreases kind of look like little V's going up right on top of each other. And then we have 1 stitch left, so skip the next one, and into that final one, place that last stitch, which is your half double crochet. So this is how we end up with the 3 stitches here at the top. So go ahead and chain 1, turn, and finish with a single crochet row. So there's my first stitch, my second stitch, and my third stitch. Okay. And then this cup is complete. So here is what that cup looks like. All right, you are ready to cut and tie your yarn, and then your strap is going to be placed into these top 3 stitches when we make the edging. Okay. So the second cup is made the exact same way as we created this first cup. So you're going to go ahead and mark the stitch out here that mirrors the stitch you marked here. So I found the 21st stitch out. So counting from the stitch, this middle stitch with the marker, I will count 21 stitches and mark that, right? And then this time you will attach your yarn into that middle stitch, all right? So they will end up with 2 stitches, both placed into that middle for both cups. Okay, so then you'll single crochet your 21 stitches out, turn your work, and start those decrease rows, just like before, where you skip the first one, do your alpine stitch across, skip the second to last, and make your half double in. Okay, so just follow the video exactly as you did for this first cup for the second one, with the difference being that you are attaching your yarn into this middle stitch marker in order to make that single crochet row. Now I will show you how to make a shorter version of the overall cup. So this time I only made 3 additional rows since that section that we did together. All right, so I ended on a single crochet row For the first step, I'm going to find my middle stitch and place my stitch marker into it. Alright, I have 15 stitches, so my middle stitch is the 8th stitch. And I've placed my marker. So now we are ready to begin the next row. For the next row, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. Now yarn over, skip that very first stitch, and into the second stitch place your half double crochet. Now make your post stitch around your next stitch, and then a half double crochet into the next stitch, a post stitch around the next stitch, and then one more half double crochet. So you have one stitch remaining before your stitch marker. This area right here of these 3 stitches is going to become a decrease. So we're going to turn these 3 stitches into one total stitch. So remove that stitch marker. To begin the decrease, you will yarn over, find the post of that next stitch, insert your hook and pull up your loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Now yarn over again, skip the next stitch completely, and then around the post of the next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So you should have 3 loops on your hook. So finish off by yarning over and pulling through all 3 loops. Right, so you should have this kind of mountain V looking thing. Now we're just going to continue the alpine stitch like we have been. So the next stitch is a half double, then our post stitch, our half double, our post stitch, and we have those 2 remaining stitches, so we will make our final decrease by yarning over, skipping that first stitch, and placing our half double crochet into that final stitch. Alright, so for the next row, go ahead and chain 1, turn, and single crochet across. Then we'll make our next decrease row. I've completed that single crochet row across, so again we're going to take a stitch marker and mark the middle stitch on that row. Alright, so I have 11 stitches, so I've marked the 6th stitch. We are ready for our next decrease row. Alright, so chain 1 and turn your work. And then again, we begin with our normal decrease. So skip the first stitch, and into the second place your half double crochet. Then around the next stitch, create your front post double crochet. And then one more half double crochet. So we have 1 stitch left before our stitch marker. So here are our 3 stitches that we will be performing our decrease on. So go ahead and remove the marker. Alright, so yarn over, find that post stitch, pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over, ignore this entire area where we created our decrease before. Okay, so we're skipping that. Find the post stitch, or the post of the stitch, rather, next to it. Insert your hook and pull up your loop. Yarn over and pull through 2. Yarn over and pull through all 3. So there is our next large decrease, right on top of the one we made before. Then finish off the row. So half double crochet, front post, double crochet, and then for our last decrease, skip the second to last stitch and place your half double crochet into the very final stitch. Alright, now again, chain 1, turn your work, and place a single crochet into each stitch all the way across. I made my single crochet, so I have 7 stitches remaining. Chain 1 and turn. Alright, this will be our very final row. So to create our first decrease, yarn over, skip the first stitch, and place that half double crochet into the next one. Now the next 3 stitches are going to be that more aggressive decrease. Alright, so yarn over, find the post of the next stitch, pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Right, yarn over, skip this stitch completely, find the stitch next to it. Right, insert your hook around the post, and then draw up your loop, yarn over and draw through 2. Now yarn over and draw through all 3. And that is our last one of these larger decreases. Okay. Now we have 1 stitch left to create, so we have 2 stitches remaining. Skip that first one, and into the last one, place your half double crochet. Alright, and to finish this off, chain 1, turn, and place 1 single crochet into each stitch. So there's 2, and this should be the top. Yeah, there is 3. Okay. And there is our shorter option for the cup. Right. So just like with the taller cup, you will recreate this exactly the same way, but on the other side. So the only difference, initially we inserted our hook and our yarn into the 21st stitch out this way, right? So this time we will go ahead and mark that 21st stitch again, but we are going to attach our yarn right into that middle stitch that we still have that marker in. Right, so that middle stitch is going to end up with 2 stitches in it, because we had 1 for this side, and then we're going to have 1 for the next side. So start here, make those single crochet, and then turn, and begin that decrease just the exact same way we did for this cup. Right? When you get to the top, go ahead and cut and tie your yarn, and we'll be ready for the next section. I have completed my second cup. So you can see that it matches the first one. Right. All we have left to do is to create the holes on this side to match the first side we've already done, and then create our top edging with our straps. Alright, so with the front side of your work facing you, attach your yarn to the first stitch right here. The ribbing starts. Alright, chain 1. And now create your single crochets all the way up and then into this edge. So be sure to create the exact same number of single crochet here that you did on the other side for the holes. Right. Okay, so just create those single crochet up, and then I will meet you here. Alright, I have 12 total single crochet going along this edge. Now go ahead and chain 1, turn your work, and then place another single crochet into each of these single crochets all the way down. Okay, so there is my second row of my single crochet. All right, so chain one and turn your work. This row is going to create the holes for our tie. So into the very first stitch, place a single crochet, chain one, skip this next stitch, and into the next stitch place a single crochet, and then one more single crochet, chain one, skip the next stitch, and then place two single crochet into the next two stitches, chain one, skip, and place two single crochet, chain one, skip, and then place your last single crochet. Right, so there are our holes. So for our very final row, we will chain one and turn, and then place a single crochet into each single crochet and each chain one space all the way down. So, right, there's one, two, and 12. Right. Now you can go ahead and cut and tie your yarn. All that we have left to do are the straps. Alright, so with the front of your top facing you, all the way to this right side here, go ahead and attach your yarn to this very top stitch right here. Alright, so chain one, then into that same spot, place your first single crochet. Alright, now go ahead and create your single crochets all the way along the edging, all the way up here. Place one single crochet into each of the top three single crochet stitches at the top of your cup. And if you're afraid that you're going to lose these stitches, go ahead and mark them with a stitch marker. Okay, single crochet down, up, mark those stitches, down, across, and I will meet you over here. I have single crocheted all the way across, and I have one more single crochet to make. So I'll complete that one. Ooh. Okay, and then into this same spot, I'm going to place a slip stitch. Just like that. And then I will cut and tie my yarn. Alright, so I will show you a close-up of my top edging so that you can see how I placed my single crochet along the edges. And then we just have to do one more row that will this time include the straps. Okay, so here are my single crochet. Then in the side, my stitch marker for the first of the three stitches, through the middle here, up this side, and then again my stitch marker for the first of these three stitches, down the second side, and then until the end. Alright, I'm going to create the straps the exact same way that I created them for the hot cocoa bralette. So if you are familiar with that process, that is what we are about to do. Okay, so go ahead and attach your yarn back to the start point. Okay, chain one. Then place a single crochet into that same space. Now chain one and skip the next stitch. Into the next one, place a single crochet. Alright, so this hole will be for the tie. This will be the top hole for it. Right. Now I'm going to place one more single crochet and then chain two. Skip the next stitch and then place a single crochet into the next one. So this larger hole is going to be for our strap to pull through. Okay. Now go ahead and place single crochets into each single crochet all the way up until you have reached this first stitch marker. Okay, I've made it to my first stitch marker, and you can see I've actually already added a second one in, and that one marks where I've chosen to create my strap. So the strap for this, I'm going to be using just a single crochet. For the hot cocoa bralette, I used a half double crochet, but I tried them both and I liked the single crochet appearance with this one a little better, so that's what I'm doing this time. All right, so for the strap placement, it can be a little bit difficult. So I wanted to show you what has sort of happened if you have followed the way I have done this. All right, so we've marked the first of the 3 stitches that were left on the cup that we created. So logically, like in my mind, I'm thinking perfect, you know, I will create mine right out of that middle stitch and it should be perfectly lined up on both sides. But unfortunately that's just not how it works for this particular project. I'm going to zoom in a little bit actually. Okay, so with crochet stitches, right, when you create the stitch, here's the stitch, the top of that stitch is off to the side, right? So if you're looking at your work as you're creating it, it's to the right, and then if you were to turn your work and work the other direction, it's to the left, right, because it switches. All right, so the stitch itself does not have a centered top. The top is shifted to the right. Then I had chosen to go ahead and do my first row with my work facing me, and then I cut and tied and created my second row again with my work facing me because I like the appearance of that. But the trade-off, I guess you could call it, of doing it this way is that the stitches shift. So they all shift to that right point, right? So this is a great example right here. You can see the first single crochet is here for that first row of single crochet, and then its top, right, this part right here, was to the right of it. So then when I placed my next stitch, my next single crochet into that stitch, it has shifted, right, to the right. So then this top is even further to the right, right? So if I were to keep making rows like this, my whole work would be a slanted, that slanted appearance, which if you have done crochet in the spiral in the round, you know is a normal thing to expect, that the whole thing kind of, well, spirals around because it leans. Okay, so this matters for this project because of the strap placement. So if I were to just go into the middle stitch here, I would actually be shifted to the right of where the middle of my cup was. So remember that this was our final middle stitch, this decrease, right? So we really want the strap to be more placed as much as we can find, or as much as we can get it, above this area, right? And this middle strap, this middle stitch rather, you can see it's shifted way to the right up here. Okay, so I like to look at my stitches, right? Here was my first of the 3, and find the one that it just looks the most natural coming out of. So I tried a little tiny bit with this one, and then a little tiny bit with this one, and decided it looked quite a lot better coming out of this stitch here. So I marked that 3rd stitch of our initial 3 to create the strap out of for this side. All right, now when we get to the other side, it's going to be a little bit different, right? Because it's the opposite side of your body, right? So if the strap ended up a little bit to the inside of the cup here, we would have created it into the 3rd stitch, right? Then we would want to mirror probably that over here. So I normally wait to figure this side out until I have this one completed so that I can find the top of the stitch that will most closely mirror that other side. All right, so it's not always symmetrical because of the way the crochet shifts, right? To make it actually look the same, you don't necessarily end up making your straps out of the exact same stitches, like, you know, you would think just this middle and just this middle, but then they end up being very off looking, right? You can see that this middle is strangely still placed pretty well over that, and this one, you know, it's not. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind as I show you how to do the strap. Okay, so I've made it to that first stitch marker, and as I mentioned, I've already determined that I want to create the strap out of this one. All right, so find the one you want as well. Go ahead and mark it. Right, so I'm going to just remove this first marker and then keep placing those single crochets until I reach this one, right? So I just have these 2 more to place. All right, okay, so here is my marker for my strap. So I'm ready to remove that one. And then to begin the strap, we will just also place a single crochet into that stitch. Right. Now we are going to make a chain that is the length that we want our final strap to be. So I'm going to make a chain of 51. And then, like with the hot cocoa bralette, you have to keep in mind that the strap is intended to be adjustable. So it will pull under and then up and then button anywhere you want it to. So there needs to be extra length on your strap than the amount that you actually want for it to fit you well, right? So make sure that you make enough to fit you and then definitely make extra. So for me, that number is 51 chains, all right? So I'm going to be creating those, right? Just like this until I have my 51. Then I will show you how to begin the top end of the strap to come back down. All right, I've completed my 51 chains. So to go back down, I'm simply going to skip that very first chain and then place a single crochet into the second one. Okay, now for the appearance of the final, it's important where you place your stitches on this chain. Okay, so if you look at the front of the chain, you have your little V's, and then if you turn it this way, that's how we're going to be crocheting down it, right? Okay, so then you need to turn it a little bit until you see those back little bumps sticking out, and that bump is where you want to be placing your stitches. All right, this helps keep the two straps looking symmetrical. You will notice a pretty clear difference between the two sides if you choose to go down the front. It'll be obvious that we created both of them coming from the same direction. All right, so you want to be careful on this strap to be sure to find that back hump, right? So there's the V, there's the back. And then place your single crochets into those, right? And complete that all the way down. And then I will show you how I finish the strap and connect it to the top. All right, I have made it back down my chain, and I have completed my last single crochet into the very first chain that I created. Okay, so for my straps, if I were to just single crochet into the next stitch on my edging, there would be this hole, right? So that when the strap got pulled, you could see a very obvious hole here between the strap stitch and the top of the cup. So I actually like to go ahead and create a final single crochet into the side of that single crochet here. All right, so I'm going to do that. I just go through the top two stitches like that. And that really helps close in the gap so that now you can see we are ready to complete it and not have any holes. Okay. So to finish, just find the next single crochet on your edging and place your single crochet. And there's your strap. So now you can just single crochet all the way across the edging again until you make it to that second stitch marker. And then once I get there, I'll show you which stitch I ended up choosing to make my next strap out of to make them look as close as possible. All right. Okay, I've made it to my second stitch marker side, right? So I looked at my stitches and I decided that I'm going to create the strap out of the middle one of the set of 3 for this side, all right? And that looked the most symmetrical with the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this first marker. So go ahead now and repeat exactly how you created the strap for the first side on the second side. So I'm just going to single crochet into this one and then into this one, chain my 51, create my single crochet coming down, do that last single crochet into, the single crochet that I made here on the side, and then I will single crochet into this one. And then just continue after that to single crochet along until you have, I think it's going to be 5 stitches remaining. So let me count that really fast, right? Because we need to make the corresponding holes. So this was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Yeah. So when you have 5 stitches remaining, go ahead and pause, and I will join you here to show you how to finish that side off. And then quick note, I actually count my slip stitch, right, as my final stitch here. So I'm not only counting the single crochets in my 5, I'm counting the slip stitch as well. So it'll be 4 single crochets and then that slip stitch. Okay. All right, I've made it to the end point where I have my 5 stitches remaining, including that slip stitch. Okay, so now we are ready to create that space for the strap on this side. So chain 2, skip that next single crochet, and then place a single into the next one, and then 1 more single into the next. And then now chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then into that slip stitch, place your final single crochet. Okay, and then now you can go ahead and cut and tie your yarn. So there's the hole and the hole. All right, and then thought I'd mention that the reason I like to go into this slip stitch at the end is once again because of how the stitches all shift the tops to the right. So on the very beginning side, shifting to the right means that this hole is placed more toward the very edge, right, of the top, which is good for us for the hole because the next holes are, you know, pretty far to the edge as well. So it lines it up pretty nicely, right? So that's shifted to the right, which puts it at the edge. But on the left side, it being shifted to the right puts it closer into the body, right? So to compensate for that, I make that last little slip stitch for basically just to have another stitch to sort of shift everything back again to the left so that the hole is again closer to the edge of our work like we want it to be, right? So that when it's pulled up, you can see it's in line like it is on the other side, right? So just a little trick I like to do. All right, so cut and tie, and then all that remains is to sew the buttons onto the straps and to create the tie for the little back. Okay, so to determine the button size that you're gonna want, mine, let me see, ended up being 12 millimeters or 1/2 inch. All right, so these single crochets, they don't have, you know, a tall post. It's a quite short post. So the hole to go through is pretty small. So your button is probably not going to be too large. So I just like to take the button and then, you know, push it through and make sure that it comes through because that's, you know, important, obviously. But I also do like it to not be very easy to push through, right? I like to have to stretch the yarn out a bit, right? Because otherwise you run the risk of it just sort of pulling right back out once it's been buttoned, which is very, very unideal, right? And then mine basically is about the width of the strap. Okay, so I just, let's see, is this the correct side? So to make the strap, right, you're going to make sure that it's not twisted from the front. And then you'll find that chain 2 space on the back and put that strap right on through, like so, right? And then just pull. Okay, so the button will go right here on this end, and then that way you can secure it anywhere along the length of this that you want, and that's how it's adjustable. Okay, so make sure that you just put it on the right side of this end and just sew it on. Okay, and then to create the back tie, I just, you know, make a long chain and weave it through. So, so when I make my tie, I just chain and then make a little cut at the ends, like right near the beginning and then the end. But I wanted to mention that somebody had made my hot cocoa bralette, and her name on Instagram is sarmi.ph, so sarmi.ph if you want to find it. It looks so good the way she did it. She added these tassels at the bottom of her chain for the back. I have a picture of it under my highlight for the hot cocoa bralette if you want to look for some inspiration. So if you want to do that instead, her work is just so gorgeous and so professional, so I totally recommend looking at it. It just makes me really happy to look at it. So beautiful. So if you want to create tassels and you like the way that looks, absolutely go for it. All right, so I'm going to create my chain, sew on my buttons, and then weave in my ends. Yeah, and then I will show you my final product. Here is my completed bralette from the back. So there is my little tie that I put through, and I have my buttons on. All right. And we have finished our bralette. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Again, if you are interested in a written pattern where I have all the different sizes figured out for you so you can just follow along, please leave me a comment below and let me know. or you can also leave me a comment on my Instagram. And if enough people are interested, I will work on that for you. Okay. All right. So that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.